My grandfather murdered a lot of people. I just uncovered an even worse secret about my family history. My grandfather murdered people and liked to bury their dismembered corpses in their own gardens. It would be unfair to call him a serial killer though, because his murders were so prolific and have no real modus operandi. If he couldn't bury them in the garden, he would simply bury them somewhere in the woods. He wasn't organized or attached the way most serial killers are. Still, he was never arrested, never caught for his crimes. I was a quiet kid with workaholic parents. My folks were never there and I was left with relatives a lot growing up, which is why I ended up spending a lot of time with my grandfather, my mother's father, which also meant they spent a lot of time watching him kill people. When I was 7 years old, my grandfather took me hunting. It wasn't the kind of hunting where you brought home a deer or a rabbit. Instead, he was going to show me exactly how to deliver a blow to another human's head and dismember them while they were unconscious but still alive. My first kill was supposed to be a boy around my age who had wandered too close to the edge of the woods. He was kicking a ball into a tree. My grandfather nudged me and pointed in the boy's direction. Obediently, I did as my grandfather said. I walked over to the other boy and smiled widely, keeping my face warm and open, just as my grandfather taught me. Innocent. Hi, I said to the boy. I clutched the baseball bat in my hand. He was wearing a red baseball cap and a pair of blue shorts and he smiled at me. A big grin with 2 front teeth missing. I think that was what stopped me. That was what made me release my grip on the baseball bat and I slowly set it down. It was strange, but I felt my grandfather's glare at that moment, his eyes boring into my back. Panic rose in my throat thinking he was going to strike me. Instead, he did something infinitely worse. He killed the boy instead. I remember numbly sitting in his truck on the drive home. He alternated between shouting at me and calling me a coward while extrapolating joy at his own kill. My fear was palpable. My grandfather was in a state of euphoria and fury. That was the last time I saw my grandfather alive. He was killed in a hit and run a week later. I never told a soul about the butchery I had seen in my childhood. A part of me convinced myself that I had it wrong, that I had invented that version of my grandfather because I had misunderstood things. He couldn't have been a killer, a rationalized, he would have been caught. I wish that my rationality had been right and that would be the end of that. I wish that I didn't have to tell you about the rest of this. But my grandfather died 23 years ago and 4 days ago, on my 30th birthday, I received the gift. It was delivered in an inconspicuous parcel, my name and address in marker pen. It had no return address and had I known who it was from or what it was, I would have thrown it out. Instead, I took it to my kitchen table along with the rest of my mail and opened it up. There was no note inside the package. Just a sealed box. Carefully I lifted it up and opened it up with my penknife. The leather-bound, blood-stained notebook stared back at me and a sick feeling clawed its way into my stomach. Curiosity, however, won out. I lifted the notebook and grimacing at the crackle of the pages, opened it to the first page which just said a name. William Ronald Harrow. That was my grandfather's name. My heart began to thud against my chest and my hands shook as I turned the page. Written in what I had a horrible suspicion was dried blood was a name and a date. Gregory Sanders, 12th of June 1981. What followed after the name was the most graphically detailed description of murder I had ever read. The thrill the killer took in severing this man's hands first. The joy he felt in pulling out his vocal cords. How long he kept his victim alive. The torture, my God, the pain he subjected that poor man to.